I spent 2 months with each of these 8 power bars, and I've come up with some conclusions to help you decide on which one to purchase. I also learned about how one company has really cornered the smart power bar market, and yet there are some pretty big differences between each of these. My goal here today isn't to sell you one of these power bars, because this market both introduces new products and removes existing products so fast that within a span of 2 months, some of these have already been discontinued. So my goal is to actually arm you with the knowledge that you'll need to pick a good power bar in the future, as well as pointing you towards one of these that will work for you today. Also, I did some pretty extensive testing, and I put all of those details in a spreadsheet that you can get to through the links below. The first one on our list is this YoLink power bar for $50 US. It works in conjunction with the YoLink hub as it communicates over what's called LoRa. That means it's not another device on your Wi-Fi, although you will have to have their hub. And being a LoRa device means it could actually sit a quarter-mile away from your home, although it's not an outdoor capable power strip. It's a 15 amp power strip with 4 individually controllable smart outlets. Each outlet can have a max of 10 amps going across it, and the 4 smart USB ports can have a total of 2.1 amps running through them. Those USB ports are not individually controllable, but you can turn them on and off together using the YoLink app and more. The power strip has LEDs that aren't overbearing, but they will show you that something is on, and the cable's 5 feet long, but this power bar can't be hung up, and it is the widest one in today's review. However, it does come with a 2-year warranty, and as you'll see, the YoLink app and that whole system provide us some specific opportunities that other power bars just don't have. For example, the hub provides a lot of automation options that just aren't available with most hubless power bars. And YoLink also connects natively to Amazon and Google voice assistants. As I move over to this power strip, it should look pretty similar to you. Yes, it is a different one, but it's the same physical design. So all of the specs I just gave you for the YoLink one apply to this. What's different between the two is that this comes from a company called Teckin, and you'll find other companies selling this exact same power bar all over the internet. In fact, this is such a common design, I'm showing it to you because it's likely you'll run into many of these, even though this one is not being sold on Amazon today. Most of these will run $30 to $40 US. However, this one communicates through Wi-Fi at 2.4 gigahertz, and it uses what's called the SmartLife app because the software is being provided by a company called Tuya. When you do find this design online, you might run into a lower amperage rating on some of the newer models, and I'm finding that they say they're only capable of 1700 watts, whereas this one says it's 1875. Because this power strip uses the SmartLife app, it can connect to both Google and Amazon voice assistants, and there are workarounds for connecting to both Apple and Samsung SmartThings for those of you using those platforms. Now, this one is $60. It's just as wide as the previous 2 power bars because it has 2 sides to it. It has 3 smart outlets, and then it has 2 smart individually controllable USB outlets. Then on top, it's split again, and it has 3 regular outlets and 2 non-controllable USB ports. The whole power bar is very strong electrically, as we might expect, as it's a 15 amp max, but its USB ports are up to 2.4 amps per side. The LEDs that you see on the device are something that can be controlled to be on or off using a voice assistant or their app, and the cable is a massive 6-foot length, and of course, you can hang this. One interesting tidbit about this surge protector is that it doesn't work with Google Home, but it does work with Amazon's voice assistant, and with a workaround, you could get this working with SmartThings. I've included the TP-Link KP303 in today's review, but I also have the HS300, which is a very similar power bar with more ports and with power monitoring for those of you interested in that little option. These are well laid out power bars that give us a lot of space between outlets. They're strong from an electrical design standpoint, and the KP303, you can see, gives us 3 smart outlets and 2 USB ports. But those USB ports are not controllable, they're always on. And from my perspective, TP-Link has really thought out the LEDs on these, as they're quite muted but still visible. And those USB ports allow for a 2.4 amp max through each port, but it's only a total of 2.4 across both of them. You can hang these power bars, but the cable length is only 3 feet. As we go though, I think what you'll see is that TP-Link and their Kasa lineup have some of the best connectivity options, with native connectivity to Amazon, Google, Samsung SmartThings, and Siri shortcuts. This power bar from a company called JolyJoy is one that you can't buy in most countries, and the company is no longer listing it on their own website. But this is something you're going to find as you go shopping for a smart power bar. Companies like this can connect with a manufacturer, create a really simplistic design, and then reach out to that company named Tuya for the software. That's what happened here, and it's very similar to that power bar from Teckin. The big differences are in the hardware design, because this power bar gives us 2 smart, individually controlled USB ports up to a total of 3.1 amps and 3 outlets, or 3 smart outlets, giving the total bar 15 amps. But this is such a compact footprint, which means that the outlet spacing has been considerably shrunk. The cable's 6 feet in length and is by far the thinnest one here today. Plus, the LEDs on this only represent the Wi-Fi status and the on-off status of the whole bar. It's also one of the shortest power bars we'll talk about today. And because it uses that software from Tuya, it uses the SmartLife app, and that gives it the exact same options for connectivity as the Teckin one. From the shortest to the longest, but still a power bar based on Tuya. This one from Globe Electric has its own app, but could be added to the SmartLife app instead. That's up to you. However, the Globe Electric app actually gives you the option to connect to Samsung SmartThings directly, as well as both Google and Amazon voice assistants. And it says on the box it can be connected or added to Siri, but I still haven't found out how to do that. The power bar has a maximum of 15 amps and has 4 controllable smart outlets. Plus, there's 2 USB outlets that are always on and sadly not controllable. However, with all of the physical length, it seems as though Globe didn't know how to use it. And it's going to waste, as the outlets are only 0.625 inches apart. Still, you can hang this power bar, and it has a reasonable cable length of 4 feet. It has well thought out LEDs, and it isn't very wide, so it will fit in skinnier locations. Meross tried to make their power bar just as long as the Globe one, but couldn't quite measure up. Still, they gave us 4 smart outlets and 4 smart USB outlets. And while the USB outlets are not individually controllable, they do give us the largest maximum throughput with 4 amps across these 4. Those 4 smart outlets also give us a maximum of 10 amps on any one of them, and the whole strip allows for 15 amps across the whole thing. The cord length is that reasonable 4 feet long. I think the LEDs are really well designed, and with everything that Meross is putting out these days, including this, it has almost infinite options for connecting the device to other platforms, even locally. In fact, this power bar connects to just about everything out there today, with Google, Amazon, Apple, and SmartThings all being direct and easy integration. And while most integrations require the internet to be available, this power bar, along with most of the ones that we're talking about today, actually have local Wi-Fi control options. Jasco used to only produce Z-Wave and Zigbee products, but have recently created a Wi-Fi lineup of smart products. To me, this is because the Matter standard is coming, but this is a brand new Enbrighten power bar that is entirely different from everything else I tested. And that's even though the app comes from Tuya as well, which again means that you could connect it through the Smart Life app. That won't really matter though, because this is such a simple power bar, and while it has really good electrical engineering behind it, it doesn't have any USB ports. And you only get a single control in either its app, on the physical device, or Amazon, Google, or Samsung SmartThings and their respective apps. It's one button to turn it all on or off. Despite being so simple app-wise, it does give you 3 smart outlets and 4 regular outlets for a maximum of 15 amps. So you've heard a little bit about each of these power bars, but they all shine in some cases and fail horribly in other ways. Let's start with one of my favorite things as an electrical engineer. One of the most important components of any power bar is the protection it provides to the things you plug it into. Most people overlook the important function that surge protectors are providing as they clean up power, as well as make sure that there isn't an electrical fault developing in any of the things plugged in. They also protect against other electrical events like surges from storms and brownouts from power issues on the grid. What shouldn't surprise you is that the best power bar for protecting your equipment comes from the company with industrial level know-how for protecting large equipment. That company is APC, or Schneider Electric. Their power bar is called a surge protector, and that is very different from a power strip. That's because a surge protector does what it says, and a power strip is really just an extension of your wall outlet. This one from APC has 2,160 joules of surge protection, which is the largest and therefore the best in our review. It will also disconnect the power from your devices if it senses a fault developing in one of your electronics. It does that by what's called voltage protection. Now, remember I said I would try and prepare you for the future? Well, without getting into the nitty-gritty of voltage protection, you want to see a rating here with the lowest voltage, and you want to see 3 ratings. This one from APC measures all the lines, which is what you want. The rating says L to N, or line to neutral, L to G, or line to ground, and N to G, or neutral to ground. Then the voltage rating is the differential you have between those lines before the surge protector senses a problem and takes your electronics off the power with its circuit breaker. Now that you understand the basics here, it's easy to see that the Enbrighten power bar has done very well, but not quite as good on that joule rating or the voltage levels. The TP-Link HS300 has great voltage protection, but the KP303 is a little bit lacking as they're missing some of the sensing. But what should stand out to you now are the disasters in terms of protection. The YoLink, the Meross, and the Teckin are called power strips, and they don't have any voltage protection whatsoever. The Globe Electric has only 300 joules of surge protection, which means it won't have any protection very early into its life, and definitely after one event. Those power strips are fine to use, but only if you don't need to protect the electronics you're plugging in. Every smart power bar needs a connection in order to perform its smarter functions. There are 4 things that are really important about connection, at least from my perspective. Number 1 is the method of connection. In fact, all of these power bars use Wi-Fi at 2.4 gigahertz, except for the YoLink one, which we talked about using that LoRa technology instead. Number 2 is whether or not that connection is reliable, and with Wi-Fi being used so heavily, it could be a problem for many people, but there were only a couple of these devices that I even experienced disconnections with. This is over months of testing, so if your Wi-Fi is strong and your router or mesh can handle lots of devices, none of these should be problematic. The third thing that's so important is whether or not you're going to require an internet connection, because this is another point of failure for your smart home. And finally, it's what you do with all this connectivity that counts, because it's great to stick it in an app and have a little button to push on your phone every once in a while, but connection to other smart home devices creates an opportunity to save time and money. In this case, the winner for me was a tie between TP-Link and Meross. Both of those are prepared for the future of Matter as far as I can tell, and they connect to all of the major platforms in one way or another. Meross is the only power bar today with native integration to HomeKit in our testing, but TP-Link is the only one with native integration to shortcuts. They are also both locally connected, meaning that they did not require an internet connection to control from their own app. And that means, although I didn't test it, you should be able to use them with platforms like Home Assistant for complete local control at all times. The local connectivity shows in the speed of response whenever I'm requesting a voice assistant or using something like Samsung SmartThings or Apple HomeKit to control these. They're fast and accurate, and the only problem I ever experienced between these two power bars was that the Meross would sometimes show disconnected in Amazon's app, but it would still work. On the flip side, it was only the YoLink and the APC power bar that required an internet connection for most of their features to work. So you will find the other power bars in this review work locally as well through their apps. The YoLink power strip recovers from this a little bit because they have the ability to pair directly with other YoLink devices and say, have a leak sensor automatically turn off the entire power strip. Still, it's not all the control that you would normally have, so it is missing a little bit. So for me, the winner in protection was the worst in connectivity because it's not locally controllable, doesn't even connect to Google, Samsung, or Apple, and I even saw it fall offline a few times. That's the APC power bar. From a physical standpoint, certain power bars are going to work better in certain situations, but there are a few designs that stand out, whether positively or negatively. One of the biggest problems I find today is that the adapters I have throughout my home can make it difficult to use all of the ports in a poorly constructed power bar. The other big problem I can run into is the length of the cable not fitting, whether it's too long or too short. And in many cases, I'd like to hang the power bar behind something so I don't have a bunch of cables all over the place and I can actually do some cable management. Unfortunately here, it's a little easier for me to start with what's really poorly designed. Both the Globe and the JolyJoy power bars have under an inch between their outlets, and this is not going to allow you to use all of them. The layout for the Globe is nothing short of infuriating because it's actually the longest power bar we had a look at, but there's no space on it. However, I think the worst design is from Jasco, as we have no USB ports and two lineups jammed together on the bar. In fact, the non-smart ports, or the regular ones, have just 0.25 of an inch between them, making them almost impossible to use. This fact, combined with a 3-foot cable and a really poorly worked out LED and power button situation, make this almost unusable in a lot of cases. If you need the most space between your outlets, TP-Link has given us 1.4 inches between each outlet, and had they not rounded the edges of their design, it would have been even better. Now, they only gave us a 3-foot cable, but I love their LEDs, and I think that it's a really well done power bar in terms of physical design. But the best overall design, and the one I've found the most useful, comes from YoLink and Teckin, as the 4 outlets allow me to use a couple of sideways adapters alongside a couple in the middle that can still be fairly large. They give us a 5-foot cable, and while it can't be hung up, the layout just feels right because those USB ports are out of the way, and every other power bar here can have the USB ports be overlapped by an adapter. I've actually been using this power bar for a lot of my networking equipment and other smart home hubs here at home, and with that equipment having such a large range of adapters, this has actually worked out really well. Now, PS, for protection, I have an upstream APC UPS. Turn off everything in testing. I'm going to quickly rip through my recommendations based on the platform you have primarily used in your home. What should surprise you here between Google and Amazon is that none of these power bars are better with Amazon. In fact, speed was 100% faster on average when using Google's Home app. The reporting back was more accurate for the status, and all of these power bars except the APC one work with Google. So honestly here, You could buy any of the Tuya bars, the Meross, or the TP-Link, and I know in the case of Tuya and TP-Link, they have been working fairly closely with Google over the years, and I think both of those will be really good choices going forward. As I told you with Google, all of the power bars were slower to respond with Amazon, and that's okay generally unless you're trying to press a bunch of buttons all at once, which is what I was testing. The other problem with Amazon is that those statuses sometimes took a very long time to come back. So I find that with these power bars, you're going to end up using the individual controls in the app more often, but with your voice, it really doesn't matter. So what it came down to was the response time and the accuracy of control. The APC, TP-Link, and Enbrighten bars all performed admirably here, and I would say that my favorite was the APC because you also got control of the LEDs on the device. TP-Link was the fastest response in all of my testing with Amazon though, so if you're looking for speed, that's your pick. With SmartThings, I was really happy with the response of many of these power bars, and Meross, TP-Link, and even the Globe Electric bar were almost instantaneous responses when used with SmartThings. In fact, SmartThings acted a lot like Google did, and I feel like the integrations are very strong with just about everything here. Of course, not the APC. The problem with the SmartLife power bars, or the ones that go into that application specifically, is that you can only control things by scene. Those scenes look like they're offline all the time, so it's not a great way to control them, but you put those scenes into scenes and routines in the SmartThings app and they act perfectly after that. The biggest problem is that if you're in the app, they say they didn't work and you can't see the status of those bars, but it all still works. The good news for me with Apple HomeKit is this comes down to one single power bar, and that has Apple HomeKit integration, and that is the Meross. Simply put though, it is local control in HomeKit and it is fantastic. Plus you have great automation options, so this is a great option regardless of whether it was the only one or not. All of the Tuya bars and TP-Link should be something you could bring into Apple HomeKit with Hoobs, by the way. From an overall perspective, my favorite comes from TP-Link. They're locally controlled, well laid out, and well designed power bars, and they work with just about everything on the market today. The quality has been high despite what is usually lower prices from TP-Link, and I'm talking about all their devices, and I can recommend pretty much all of them. A close second is Meross's power strip, but it loses out a little bit on that protection side. Still, at least there I get USB control and HomeKit. And finally, if I have to protect electronics in my home, I'm going to use the APC or the Enbrighten one. So you'll find all the links below, but if you're looking at purchasing a number of smart products, then you'll want our other comparison reviews where I deal with sensors or light bulbs or smart displays or smart speakers in your home. And so check out that playlist that's right there, and you're going to find a comparison review that gives you all of the great details that you need to make the right purchasing decision. Otherwise, thanks for watching today, and of course, don't hate, automate.